Good morning. It's Wednesday. I have Commissioner candidate David McCall here. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Hello. Hey, let's talk about your background, who you are, why you're here, why you want to be commissioner, all those fun things.
All those
that you
things,
want to tell everybody and let them know.
all those things you've never heard before,
Yes,
right?
no, they're all new information.
So let's start with the important thing. My name is David McCall. I'm running for Tillamook County Commissioner. You're going to hear quite a few things from me today, but not everything. Anybody who wants more information about me should check out my website. It's votemccall.org. So vote, just like vote on May 15th. McCall, like my last name, MCCALL.
I was going to say it has 2 C's in it. Make sure it's not one.
Yep. And .org. So there's a lot more information on there than we'll get through today. But it has a lot of information about my background and my value system.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people here throughout the county through my position as the Solid Waste Program Manager here at Tillamook County. That's a position I've had since 2012. And, I've interacted with a lot of people throughout the county, from Manzanita through Nescoin and from Oceanside to Lee's Camp during that time. And gone around a lot. I've also met a lot of people and know a lot of people through my position as a city councilor in Bay City. There's also a lot of people that I got to know and interact with through my volunteering with the Tillamook Farmers Market over the past few years.
Sure. Yeah.
And there are other functions that we all wind up at.
I was going to say, I feel like there's... most people have their hands in multiple pots.
Yeah.
We all get involved in something.
Well, this community is great for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Welcoming you in and then getting a little bit out of you and just sucking a lot more in. And it's amazing when we find out that we're all fortunate to have 26 hours a day, so we can add that extra 2 or 3 hours of volunteering and commitment. But, that's something that I was brought up with. I was brought up in a small town in eastern South Dakota, very similar to Tillamook in many ways, except, like I like to say, it's a whole lot easier to shovel the snow here in Tillamook.
Yeah, sure.
But so I'm a small town boy who went off to the big city, went off and lived in Europe. I spent half my life living in Europe and learning my trade and my profession, which I've been practicing for more than a couple decades now. But I also have a value system, which I consider completely normal. And I'm actually surprised when I find out that not everybody shares that same set of values. But I consider them core values, things like transparency, the importance of transparency and engagement in our processes, reaching out and involving people. And not only the people that we agree with, singing to the choir, as we say, but other people as well. One of the real key things is to be able to reach out and actually engage people who are a little bit outside of our normal comfort zone. Those are the people from whom we can learn the most and get those different perspectives and interaction in. That helps lead us to decisions through a process that gets buy-in from everybody and gets that acceptance from everybody. There's a saying that says a compromise is when everybody feels that they've lost a little bit, but have still come a little further forward. I think a compromise is more the situation where everybody feels that they're getting a benefit out of it at the end, and they can really live with it and take ownership in it. And I'm very passionate about that, about engaging people. Through my role with the county, I think I've done a pretty good job with my advisory committee, making sure that not only the agenda for the advisory committee is posted on our website well in advance, but all the meeting materials as well.
Sure.
So that anyone in the public can look and find out not only what happened during meetings over the past 5 years, but actually what's happening at the meeting in 3 days, which it's not the best example right now because we just had an advisory committee meeting yesterday afternoon. But had you looked at our website on Wednesday or Thursday last week, you would have seen what's upcoming for the next meeting, including all the materials and things. And I think that's really important. And as a county commissioner, one of the most important roles is to be a convener. A county commissioner should not be a micromanager. One person cannot do everything. Right. And especially with a county government with 260 odd people working there, no one person should think that they can do everything. What that county commissioner should be able to do is identify with an issue, who are the people that he or she needs to bring to the table and actually get them to the table and guide that discussion to results, guide the process through, get them working on things together, make sure they're actually involved, and people from different sides of the issues, but also with the same goals at the end. Yeah. We call it being a convener.
Yeah.
And it's convening and guiding it through. That is one of the major roles of the county commissioner. And that's within the county itself, but also with other agencies, state agencies, local organizations, private citizens, and even federal organizations. That's what a commissioner really needs to do and do well.
And that's what you're planning on doing, right?
Oh, you bet.
Is that why you want to become a commissioner?
Yeah. So I feel that so Tillamook County has been fortunate to have some good so some commissioners with really the county at heart at the end of the day. I cannot say anything malicious about any of these, the commissioners that I've known here. They've had the county's best interests at heart. We may have difference of opinions on certain things, but they've still got it at heart at the end. What I see is I'd like to continue that and actually make sure that the commissioners are led by some strong individuals who can actually lead with that. And I feel that I fit into that role. I feel like I'm building myself up here and my head will be so big I can't get out the studio door. But the reality is we have to be honest with ourselves and say we need someone who's willing to take that extra step, to pick up that phone and make that extra phone call, to make that extra trip to Salem, to actually get on the phone with somebody in Washington, D.C., to bring about and pursue the interests of the county for the betterment of the county and bringing that forward. And I think I do have the ability to do that.
Great. Let's talk about housing, because that is, everybody wants to talk about housing. We all know there's an issue. I actually talked to one of the candidates for the governor seat, and he talked about it on a state level. What are some ideas or things that you have planned that you would like to see happen as far as our housing crisis?
So we have a housing crisis. There's no question about that. Not only in Tillamook County, but on the state level, on the nationwide. Yeah. This is one of the hot topics everywhere. I will not avoid the question, the answer. I was a proponent supporting the construction excise tax when it went on the ballot because I saw that as one step we could take to resolving the problem.
Sure.
And I actually went out knocking on doors in support of that. But I want to emphasize that's one part of it.
Right.
The housing crisis did not pop up overnight. This has been years and decades in the making. Yep. It took a long time to get this to the stage we're in now. It's a complex issue. And there are professionals who can really get a grip around that complex issue. I am not a professional who understands all the aspects of it. There are zoning aspects to it. There are permitting aspects to it. There's simple money. How can builders make more money and be incentivized to do things? There are systems development charges, different water districts, and there's so many different aspects that come into play with it. It's not a simple let's fix this in 10-minute task. What I do appreciate is that Commissioner Bartlein took the lead on this in convening a group of people together from the community, the Housing Task Force, that put a lot of work and energy into a report which contained a list of recommendations at the end. And they went to try and address the list of recommendations, starting with number 1 and including 2 and 3. And they actually have made a lot of efforts toward that. The construction excise tax was one of those recommendations, but there were 4 or 5 that they're actually pursuing. Since the ballot initiative, things have not stopped. They've sat down, they tried to figure out a way they could still work on things and make advancements without that tax, and they have been doing that. The task force has put together a grant application, and they've applied for funds and assistance from the governor's office, and they're making progress on this whole thing, and they're moving forward on it. I hope that as a candidate for commissioner and a county commissioner, I will not have to be the lead on this, but actually throw my support behind Commissioner Bartline so that he can continue to guide this process through it and wind up with results. Because we're not going to have a solution for the housing crisis
there's
in
not
2
a
months.
one-size-fits-all solution for sure. Yeah.
But we're going through the process, and I think that actually is working. Discussions are being held. They've put in for grant money on it. It's moving forward.
Which is good to hear. I know Bill has been in here a couple times, and we've talked a little bit about it as well. Yeah. So, I look forward. Every time he comes in, we have a little chat about it.
I mean, at the end of the day, I am also a renter. I don't want to be put out on the street because my landlord can make more money off of short-term rentals.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I have to take a quick break. We're going to talk about Tillamook Motor Company. April is Ford Truck Month, and now is the time to visit Tillamook Motor Company. The Ford F-Series is America's best-selling trucks for over 40 years. It's what you're looking for. It'll get the job done. And you're going to find some great deals at Tillamook Motors. Whether it's the 2018 Super Duty or the F-150, they've got your truck. Go further with Ford. Find your ride at Tillamook Motors on the friendly corner of 5th and 7th in Maine in downtown Tillamook. Tillamook Motor Company, a better place to do business. So we're talking with Commissioner candidate David McCall this morning. And your background is in, obviously, waste management. We talked about that. What kind of... We're in a precarious situation right now because China has stopped buying... I don't know if people understand that or if they've paid attention, but China used to buy our plastic and would recycle it and make it into other products. And they have stopped doing that as of January, which means now there's a lot of things that we can't recycle anymore. Is the county, do you have plans? And I know this kind of tiptoes onto your current job, but are there plans as a commissioner that you could further some of the additional recycling around here? Or, I'm not sure. Yeah.
So, you did a good introduction into this, into a very complex situation.
Yeah.
Because the reality is China has been taking our recyclable materials for decades. And recycling throughout the United States, but especially along the East Coast, has been overly dependent on China to purchase those materials. Yeah. Recycling materials are valuable as a secondary raw material. Yeah. So rather than having to go out and mine ore to make aluminum cans and make aluminum for aluminum cans, you take the aluminum cans and make them back into aluminum cans for that. You save energy. You don't have to mine the ore. You save water, et cetera, et cetera. Recycling paper is the same thing. You don't have to harvest softwood trees to make it into pulp, to make it into newspaper. You can take the paper, make it back into paper, and you save those resources, and it's beneficial for the environment and the economy at the end. The West Coast is in a situation where we purchase so many products from not just China, but Asia in general, that those shipping containers have to be sent back so they can bring in more products. And it was really cheap to send materials from the United States to, mainly China, because that's the biggest purchaser. And when we did the commingled recycling throughout on the West Coast, that was even better because cheap labor means that they could sort through them better. And if we didn't do a perfect sort, they would still take it. The reality is, it's about 14 years ago, China came and said, they're sick of dealing with all the contamination we have in our what we call recycling. Yeah. We were sending them materials that we said was newspaper, and in reality, that might have 20, 30% plastic mixed in with it. And they said, no, we'll pay for your newspaper. We'll pay for your cardboard. We'll pay for your plastic water bottles. We'll pay for your butter tubs, things that are sorted by resin. They'll pay for that. They don't want the mixture, and especially with all the extra stuff that's not good. I mean, imagine when you have cardboard boxes and you have that shipping tape on them. Right. That's one thing if it's only with the cardboard. Yeah, sure. Imagine that if that's mixed in with a whole bunch of other stuff and you've got some plastic bags in there, it just creates a mess. Right. And basically, we were not sending it to the landfill here, but we were leaving it as part of the mix and sending it overseas. Now, there are a lot of reasons that this happened, like our use of newspaper has decreased. The drink bottles have gone in thickness from a fairly thick to a very thin, which means when they're crushed in the back of a truck or in a baler, they become so thin that the machinery that separates them out actually thinks that it's a flat piece of paper. Yeah. You think about junk mail you get in the mail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure.
And if you take, for example, a water bottle and flatten that,
To be about the same thickness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thickness, weight, it's very similar.
Yep.
And the machinery wasn't able to sort it out well enough. The more we recycled, the quicker the machines had to go, the less time that people had to do a quality assurance. And if China was taking it anyway, no problem. And they'd say, okay, this one is contaminated. They did a 5% or 8% price reduction. It still made sense to do it.
Right.
And what China did 13, 14 years ago is said, listen, we're going to give you a 7-year heads up. We don't want your junk anymore. And then we were surprised when they cracked down. And at that time, they said they were reducing it to, I believe it was 3% contamination they would accept. And we didn't, we had a year when it was a problem and didn't fix our things and just went back to business as usual after 14 months. Then about a year and a half ago, they started a new system, which is called the National Sword, where they said 1.5% contamination is all they would allow. Well, that's a real problem. Then they came out and they said, as of January 1st this year, they'll still take our materials and they're still buying things from the United States, but the contamination level is 0.3%.
Oh, man.
That's almost perfectly clean.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine a bale of paper that weighs 3/4 of a ton. That's 1.5 milk jugs to contaminate that entire bale.
Yeah.
So it has to be really clean.
Yeah.
And because they're not able to make it that clean easily, that's why export to China has essentially stopped because they'll still take the clean material, but the material isn't clean enough.
Right.
Now, to Tillamook County, we have not relied on Chinese markets. The plastics we had were the only things that were actually going to export. Everything else was going to domestic markets.
Okay.
Plastics was going as a mix, and that was going abroad. So all we had to do here was change our sort. So we used to be able to mix up any plastic that had a neck on it or tubs that was able to mix together. Now we have to separate the number ones from the number twos.
Right.
We can no longer take the plastic films. We no longer take the tubs because we don't have domestic markets for those.
Gotcha.
But we can still take the ones and twos and send them to our domestic markets.
Oh, okay.
The complication that comes is that because nobody is exporting now, they're pushing their material in the domestic markets.
Right.
And supply and demand means that values of recycling have dropped dramatically.
Yeah. Sure.
So the economic formula is just really screwed up. But fortunately, the Solid Waste Department actually embarked on a financial visioning process a couple years ago, and we were preparing for that, not preparing for this specifically, but preparing for the eventuality. When we started on this, our plan was to look at, the way that the Solid Waste Department is funded is primarily from tipping fees. So when you take your garbage to the transfer station, you drop that off, that money is the county's money that we receive. We charge more than it costs us to get rid of the garbage.
Sure.
And with that margin is what we operate on. And but it's only on the tipping fees for the garbage that we make money. And what we had looked at was in the future, as we recycle more and more, that means we have less and less garbage.
Right.
So we don't have the margin.
Yeah.
And what we were planning for is what happens when we reach that point where we have so much recycling that we don't have the garbage with the margin that will enable us to keep on functioning.
Right.
So we were looking at things to prepare for that. And then this most recent problem came up. So we were able to kind of morph that thought process to include this. And it's worked out well because, like I said, we've been working on this for several years. As part of a strategic plan, how we deal with this, how we address the issues. And it's worked out well for us. That's why if you look at our recycling system in Tillamook County, it's had very few changes since the Chinese problem came up in November. If you go to other places, in the valley, it doesn't matter if you go to Eugene, Springfield, or Portland, or Salem, or where, they have had major changes. We haven't had as many. Even if you go down to our neighbors to the south in Lincoln City, they're now charging to accept your commingled recycling.
Oh, yeah.
We're not charging to accept recycling anywhere in Tillamook County. So,
yeah. Well, and I think that, I know that doesn't really touch on commissioner type things, but I think that is a really good I think that shows people how you look at a problem and try to find solutions that are creative and not really affect anybody in a negative way. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good example of what I see as what I can bring to the commissioners as well. One of the problems I see in the county is there are several departments that have developed their own strategic plans. The solid waste department is one of them. The road department is another. The library is another. The health department is another. Take each of those individual departments, you look at their strategic plan. They figured out where they were at, where they wanted to be in 5, 10, 20 years, and a set of steps how to get from here today to where we are, step by step. And they've made that happen. And look at the departments I mentioned, the library. That building is 12 years old. It's an incredible building. The library has gone past a couple levies since this. This is thanks to the good planning process that they've gone through. The health department used to cost the county quite a bit of money. Now it's actually self-sustaining and repaying, is almost finished repaying their loans back to the county. The road department has gone through, they passed the general obligation bond. We have the TLT funds. Now there's a transportation package. These are all parts of a well thought out strategic plan.
Yeah.
What the county needs, in my opinion, is a strategic plan for the whole county.
Right.
Let's take what we've got, the good examples from these departments, and use that to create a good plan for the whole county as a whole. Budget presentations are going on, as we speak. But this afternoon
right now,
they pick up again these days. The county is looking at right now as they go into this with a $1.6 million deficit that they're trying to figure out how they can make ends meet and work over this. When you look at the budget, the big problem is not with the different dedicated funds like the library and the health department, the road department thing, but it's actually the general fund and how that overarches.
Right.
So that's where we need to address this and figure out where we are, where we want to be, and how we're going to get there, and work on it step by step to get that. That's a good planning process.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's an obvious roadway, what we have to do to get there.
We only have 5 minutes left. That went really fast. I know one of your big platforms that you're talking about is emergency preparedness, which we talk about it every once in a while. I feel like we'll hear about an earthquake in Alaska and there's no tsunami warning, and I don't feel like we talk about it enough, though. What is your plan for emergency preparedness?
I agree with you. So what I see, and it's really surprising when I ask questions. Tillamook County is in a unique situation. We have big storms almost every year.
Right.
But I think that makes us a little bit complacent as well. We have some great organizations. The Emergency Volunteer Corps of Nehalem Bay is widely known and renowned for the great work that they've done. But it's mainly concentrated in North Tillamook County. They've expanded the Yellow Radio program, so it works from Manzanita all the way through Rockaway Beach now. But once we get out of the area and out of the tsunami areas, it seems like there's very little talk about what's going on. And I think we've become so, I'll say, accustomed to the regular windstorms, landslides, flooding events we have that we think we're going to be okay. Well, when the earth shakes, it is going to be so different. And it's not going to be just along the shore. It's going to be inland as well. And everybody's going to be affected. Right. And I think we don't spend enough time actually thinking about how we prepare ourselves, but also our businesses. When we look at FEMA and the Small Business Administration, statistics show that after a major disaster, like an earthquake or a tsunami or something, at least 25% of small businesses never reopen. After Hurricane Katrina, a year later, 60% of the small businesses still had not reopened. Wow. We need to prepare ourselves so that we can be the exception and have everybody prepared. Because when the big one hits, we are going to be affected big time.
So is that something, if you're voted into office, that will be one of your kind of priorities, is making,
Definitely.
Having more emergency preparedness?
Definitely.
Trainings I want to make sure we mention events where can we find you?
So a few events that all the candidates are going to be at. So open forums, people will be able to come to, and encourage people to come and think about your questions and ask your questions, of all of us. And it doesn't matter if it's about emergency preparedness or the budget or roads or whatever the issue. Come prepared and ask. So we've got 5 more full forums that are coming up. The first one's going to be this Saturday in Oceanside at the community hall at 1 o'clock. That's on the 14th. Then the next day, I encourage everybody to come to Bay City. We've got an incredible pancake breakfast at the Bay City Arts Center on Sunday the 15th that goes from 8 until 12. Then once you've had your fill of pancakes, which is only $5 and supports the Arts Center, you can go upstairs and there's going to be a candidates forum at 12:30. Then on Tuesday the 17th, doors open at 5:30 p.m. for the AAUW Headlight Herald Candidates Forum that's going to be at the community college. Then the next day, on Wednesday the 18th, doors open at 6 o'clock at the Kiwanda Community Center in Pacific City. That's the South County Forum, the Candidates Forum. Then a week later, on April 25th, doors open at 5:30 for a candidates forum at the Pine Grove Community House in Manzanita.
You're everywhere.
Well, that's just where everybody's coming.
I know, and because I'm looking at your calendar right now.
Yeah. And I can tell you, if people want to come and meet with just me, I've got a whole bunch of events. What I've got during the same time period, this Friday at 11 o'clock, I'm going to be in Nesquin at the Nesquin Trading Company. And on Saturday the 14th, I'm going to be at Hidden Acres at 9:30, Seaworthy Gifts in Niche Arts at 11:30. Those are Coffee with the Candidate events. I've also got a Coffee with the Candidate event scheduled in Pacific City on the 21st, 8 o'clock at the Stimulus.
And you can find all of these things on his website, votemccall.org. It's MCCALL. And I like even on your calendar that you have the last day to register to vote is the 24th.
Yes.
And the first day to mail ballots is April 25th.
Correct.
Yeah, I like that you have all those things on there.
I would like to stress my website is votemccall.org. If you only put in mccall.org, you'll get to Tom McCall's website. And some people have been confused by that.
Votemccall.org, yes. Hey, thanks for coming in this morning.
Hey,
good
thanks
conversation.
for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Tomorrow we'll have Jerry Dorland here from the Trask River School. We have a lot going on this weekend, mostly on Saturday. As David mentioned, there's a candidates forum from 1 to 3 at the Oceanside Community Hall. On Saturday, the Pelican Tap Room is hosting the Coastally Crafted Beer and Cheese event from 12 to 4. Lots of different breweries, creameries, and food. Entry is $10. They are asking you to bring cash because not everybody's going to have a card machine. Pacific Restaurant is hosting the Legacy Ball this year with a multi-course French cuisine Saturday night from 6 to 9. There's a few tickets still available. You can get them at the school district office or at eventbrite.com. That's BRITE.com. There's a fundraiser dinner benefit on Saturday from 5 to 8 at the junior high. It's tri-tip from Papa Bear Smoked Meats, mashed potatoes, vegetables. This is to benefit Allie Dixon's Archery Nationals trip. On Saturday, there's a community dinner, an open mic at the Fairview Grange from 6 to 8. It's a family-friendly community event benefiting the restoration of the Grange, and the NCRD in Nehalem is hosting a talent show on Saturday night from 7 to 9. Tickets are $10. I assume you will be there since your daughter will be dancing.
Oh, my daughter is going to be there. You bet I'll be there.
So people can check you out there too. On Sunday at the Officers Mess Hall, the 6th annual AAUW fundraiser is happening to support scholarship programs for local women and children, or local women and girls. It includes fabulous appetizers, chocolate sweets, live music, silent and oral auction. Tickets can be purchased from an AAUW member or by calling Kathleen at 812-1501. And the Bay City Art Center is hosting a candidates forum on Sunday at 12:30. David, thanks again for coming in this morning.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. And,
have a good day, Tillamook.
Yeah, and thank you, Tillamook, for listening.